Today, in honor of Juneteenth, we are speaking with Mr. Eugene McFarlin, a member of our community here at Ignite Living who played an active role in the civil rights movement. As a young man, he made the decision to leave college and take part in sit-ins and rallies in Atlanta, standing for justice at a pivotal time in our nation's history. So today, we're honored to hear his story. So, Mr. Eugene,
Yes.
what led you to leave college and get involved in the civil rights movement?
Well, it was a period of time that I was in college, and the group of guys, just normal guys, not really a student, but they wanted to talk about the situation we're in now. We're in today. At that time, that was in the 57. And I was there listening, and they told me about what they felt should happen. We were under a segregation system. That was the form of government we had, and that was the law. But they said, why hasn't this changed? Why hasn't somebody done anything about this? And they said, why not? Why don't we try it? And so we made an effort to go out and find out that lots of the young men around the campus felt the same way we did. However, they didn't have the courage to step up. So I felt that I was in a position to do something. However, I was under the restriction of my advisor as far as my mentor to get me through college, since I went there on an academic scholarship. But when I found out that the result of my participating in the civil rights movement, it wasn't called the civil rights movement, it was called the student that going downtown to sit in. That's all we had to do, we go and sit in. However, we took a vow that we would not retaliate if we would challenge either at the lunch counter or by the police officer. We'll just be passive and go forward with whatever occurred. But we're determined to make an effort to change the system. We knew we were violating the law. However, the law is not worth having if you can't find a resolution to it and find what the consequence of it. So I made an effort to step out and participate and go downtown and sit in the lunch counter, not knowing what was going to happen, but we were pretty well received, and pretty much what we anticipated. They did inform us at this particular counter, lunch counter, that they didn't serve there and they wanted us to leave. Well, naturally we responded, we didn't want no, we wanted some food. But then again, we felt that we weren't getting the service we needed, but we were going to continue to sit down until we got what we wanted. And the thing that really upset me was that some of the people who were there, the customers who were trying to get the same service we were requesting, felt that we was out of place trying to defy what the law was and, go forth in our effort to make a change. It was no law enforcement involved at that time. We just had confrontation between customers, their customers, as we were customers too, asking us to leave. And we felt that we didn't want to leave. And there was confrontation as to whether or not we were stepping out of line or getting out of our place. But we went forth with what we felt we could do to get what we wanted. Now, some of these people that we saw were not strangers. We knew who they were, white and black. And they asked us to leave. And not only that, they began to get a little violent, to go forth and challenge us and ask us to leave by striking us upside the head and say, get out of here. But we decided to take the blow and continue to sit in. However, law enforcement, as far as the police concerned, came in and asked us to leave. We didn't obey, but they gave us command to leave. So we were asked to leave. They asked us to come outside, which we did. And a couple of us were arrested. The rest of us, they let us go on. But the point is, we were trying to make a statement.
That's great, Eugene. So why did you go to college? What was your intent, your major, or what were you wanting to do?
My intent wanted to become a doctor,
A doctor.
research scientist, and I was going to go into college with a major in biology and a minor in chemistry, which I did well. Those were my favorite subjects. I enjoyed it. However, I felt that the social issues need more addressing than my academic career is concerned. So I made a sacrifice to step out and go forward with this. But my main question in the whole issue was that why hadn't this been handled before I got there? Then I think, who's gonna take care of this social issue? Civil disobedience. And I asked myself, well, if nobody else doing it, why don't you do it? Why not? And I stepped out and forego my education and let my effort in the civic activity take charge.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't imagine your intent for college to be a doctor, a scientist, taking biology, taking chemistry, and then realizing there's a greater issue.
Yes.
Greater issue than you and your own desires.
Yes.
And what happened once you started to get involved in doing the sit-ins? Did you go back to college, or were you able to go back to college? What happened?
Well, that was a choice. Go to class and not be put on probation or expelled. I decided to be more civic active rather than academic. And so my activity turned to civic affairs, trying to get change in the society rather than trying to get my degree to go to do what I want to do in my career. But I regret that we're having this interview because it's sad. I am angry because at that time I was expelled from college because of non-attendance to classroom activity, and I was challenged, and I didn't know what to do. I was puzzled because I thought I was doing good, but it was costing me my education. And so I asked my grandmother, what should I do? She said, boy, what you need to do is get married since you're not going to college. And I took her advice and dropped out of college. I continued the civil rights movement, but I forego my education. That was my contribution.
Yeah.
However, this was pre-Snake and pre-Martin Luther King. It was back in the 50s. However, I felt that I was just one to lay the foundation. The sad part of it is that most of the guys who were of my age group were drafted into the Army. In fact, I was classified 1A, and I was sent down to the Induction Center, and I was really anxious to get into college. However, the young lady that I was anticipating on marrying, grandmother found out that I had been sent down to the draft board to be inducted into the military. She interceded because she knew somebody who were part of the local board there in Barnesville, Georgia, and she asked them to forego me because had planned to marry her daughter and she was pregnant, and she felt that I would be better served staying home. And lo and behold, they took me out of the examination center here in Atlanta, where I'd been sent for an induction, and sent me back and reclassified me 4A, which meant that I wasn't fit for military duty. However, I was qualified to continue to be drafted if war came to this country, but we didn't have any war in this country. So I didn't serve in the military, but as far as being on the front line and a soldier for civil rights, I was in the battle wholeheartedly.
Yeah. How did your family and friends react to your decision?
I had a negative feedback from my family. However, I did have the support of my grandmother, and my mother said, what the heck? She anticipated me going to college, but my uncle and my peers in the local community of Barnesville felt that I was the biggest fool in the world to go up and put my life on the line because I could get killed doing what I was doing. However, I received the support after the fact that we did a good job, but that was after the fact. But I didn't hold any animosity. but I felt that I should have had their support in the beginning. They were anti-sit-in. They felt that we were just stepping out of line, violating the law, and putting our life in jeopardy.
So what does Juneteenth mean to you?
Freedom,
Freedom.
freedom. Juneteenth is something that I wasn't aware of at the time I was in college. In fact, I didn't know about it until after all of my kids had grown up. I would say within the last 5 or 6 years, I began to grasp what the meaning of Juneteenth was. And that was the freeing of the slave in June 17th, 1865. And the slave should have been freed on January the 1st, 1863. But the people in Texas did not release their people, their laborers or slaves, until General Gordon in the, I don't know what rank of it, infantry cavalry or the army went into Galveston, Texas, and told them that they should be free. And then they began to realize that they were free, and they were able to be protected by the Freedmen's Bureau until they got a chance to establish themselves as individual laborers for hire to continue the job they were working on as slaves.
So looking back, what are you most proud of from your time during the movement?
Well, what I'm most proud of is the ability to say that I stepped out and didn't have no roadmap to go by, and we blazed our own trail. But we felt that we were doing something. However, we had to acknowledge that there were other people who made an attempt, but they were discouraged either by lynching or by mob to not step out of line. But we just stepped out en masse, not just only here in Atlanta at the AU Center, but the whole country. All the historic black colleges, students began to protest the condition we lived under. And I was fortunate enough to have a friend who actually went into the first lunch counter sit-in, which was in Greensboro. And the thing that was amazing about it, she became president of the AU Center Student Nonviolence Organization. But we didn't have a SNCC then. That came along later, like 10 years later. And she was able to guide us. But the only thing I regret about the young lady who became chair and leader of the group, since she participated in the first one, was that she was too militant. In fact, she asked some of the participating white students who were from Georgia Tech, of course, who wanted to come in and work with us to help us get free. She said, no, we would do it on our own. I didn't understand what she meant, but I thought we need every support we can get from anywhere. But she felt that we could do it on our own and not ask that the white people come in and help us. We help y'all. This is what you get. No, we do it by ourselves. Ruby Dodge was something else. But that's what she felt about it. And we had quite an argument over that because we felt we get all the support we need from anywhere. It didn't make any difference.
So what advice would you give to young people fighting for justice today?
I would continue to ask them to be civil and not to be aggressive as far as being violent. I would ask them to really demand what they want and not step back. Just stand in the gap and know that your request is lawful and that you have that ability because you're protected by our Constitution here in the United States. Thank God for the forefathers. They didn't distinguish by race initially, but they went forth with what they had and they tried to appease everybody. But once they realized they were trying to find justice for all, that included me. And I felt happy about that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Eugene, thank you for your time today.
Thank you.
We are honored to have you in our community, honored to have you in our life.
Mm-hmm.
We are grateful for you. As you said in your own words, you're blazing a trail when you didn't have the roadmap.
Yes.
You didn't know what to do, but you knew you needed to do something.
Yes.
Even when you had a desire for college and to be scientist and take biology and chemistry. That was your desire, but you saw a greater need,
Yes.
and you stood up.
Yes.
And even before the greats that you see that came through civil rights, you and your friends in college stood up and tried to make a difference. And I believe you truly did make a difference.
Yes.
So, and we are grateful to have you with us and grateful to hear your story.
Thank you.
So thank you, Eugene.
Thank you. Glad to be able to share.
Yes, sir.